This story took place a long time ago, during a beautiful summer, when everything was green, and the sun was shining proudly over the plains and the forests. At the edge of a puddle, hidden from the eyes of the animals of prey, a duck had made its nest and was brooding her eggs. Before the chicks were hatched, the duck was really bored because no one would come to visit her. Her friends preferred to splash around in the water instead of keeping her company. And then the time came for the ducklings to see the light of day. First, one egg cracked open, and then another one, and then another one, until all of them had cracked, with the exception of one. This egg seemed to be bigger and stranger than the rest of the eggs. Could be heard from all directions. The ducklings came to life and took their first steps, said the mother duck. And then all the ducklings started repeating after her every word, the best they could, looking all around them and being amazed at how big the world was. But the mother duck was very worried about the egg that still had not hatched.
What is wrong with this egg? Maybe it's not its time yet.
After a little while, the big egg finally began to crack, said the chick coming out of the shell. She was a strange duckling, smoky gray, with ruffled feathers and a longer neck than the rest of the ducklings. The mother duck looked her over carefully and she said,
"Oh my, you're so big. You don't look like your siblings. Maybe you belong to a chicken or a turkey? Let's put you in the water and see if you're able to swim."
And that's what she did. The mother duck took her offspring and started towards the nearby lake. Once they got there, she gave the order. And one by one, the ducklings jumped in the water. At first, the water was too deep for them, but they managed to rise quickly to the surface and swim with much ease, even the ugly gray chick.
She can't be a chicken, not even a turkey. Look how well she moves her feet and how well she floats on the water. She must be mine. And if you look closely at her, she's even quite cute.
The ducklings played in the water until they were tired, and then the mother duck called them back.
Follow me to the duck yard. But stay close to me so you don't get stepped on. And look out for cats.
The ducklings formed a straight line behind their mother, and they all set out toward the duck yard. When they spotted them, the ducks in the yard gave them a long look and then said aloud,
"Look at who we have here. We're already too many here. Look how ugly that one is." Unbelievable. She's so unusual.
One of the ducks dashed towards the ugly duckling and pinched the back of her head.
Leave her alone. What did she do to you?
She didn't do anything to me, but she's too big and very strange. We have to do something about this.
Please just leave her alone. It's true that perhaps she's not the prettiest duckling, but she's good-natured, and she can swim as well as the others, maybe even better.
The mother duck caressed the duckling and smoothed down her feathers.
When she gets older, she'll surely be more beautiful.
And that's how the mother duck and the ducklings decided to stay here and make it their home. But the other ducks continued to be mean with the ugly duckling. They pinched her, pushed her, and made fun of her, and not just the ducks, but the chickens as well. The poor duckling didn't know where to hide and what to do. She was so upset because she was so ugly, and all the birds in the yard made fun of her. One day, the ugly duckling couldn't stand it anymore, and she jumped over the fence. She set out in the big wide world, telling herself,
"If nobody loves me here, I will go somewhere else then. Someplace where I'll be received with open arms."
She walked for a while until she reached the big pond, where the wild ducks were spending their time. The ugly duckling went to them and said hello as nicely as she could. When they saw her, the wild ducks gave her a long look and then asked her,
Tell me, what kind of bird are you? You're very ugly, but we don't care. You can stay with us.
The poor duckling was happy she could sit in the reeds and drink a little water. She stayed there for 2 whole days in the peace and quiet until the hunters came. All the birds in the surrounding area were frightened, and the ones who could fly away did so. The hunting dogs went into the reeds looking for the birds, and one of them, a dog with long ears and a wet nose, came close to the ugly duckling, gave her a puzzled look, sniffed her, and moved on.
I'm such an ugly duckling. Not even the dog wants to bite me or have much to do with me. I was lucky they didn't get me this time.
The poor duckling hid even deeper in the reeds and waited for a few more hours until the hunters left. Then she got out of the pond and ran as fast as she could, crossing the field and hiding in the forest. Autumn came, and the leaves turned yellow and dry. The wind ripped them from the branches and scattered them in the air. It was cold. The poor duckling was trembling, huddled near the forest lake. One evening, a flock of big and beautiful birds suddenly appeared. The duckling had never seen birds as beautiful as them in her whole life. They were as white as snow and had long and delicate necks. They were swans. They stopped for a little while, and then they spread wide their great wings and continued their voyage to warmer climates. The ugly duckling was overcome by a strange restlessness. She couldn't sit still anymore.
Wow, I wonder who are those wonderful birds?
She didn't know their name. She didn't know where they had gone, but she felt more drawn to them than to anyone else she knew. The poor ugly duckling would have been very happy if at least the ducks had welcomed her to their flock and hadn't sent her away. Winter came. The duckling had to swim all the time and move from one place to another so that she wouldn't freeze completely. But after a while, she became tired and went to find a warmer spot. A storm started, and the duckling reached a small house at the edge of a village. She hid behind the house and waited for the wind to stop. All of a sudden, the duckling noticed that the door of the house was half open. So, she went inside to escape the wind. In the house, there was an old woman, a tomcat, and a chicken. The old woman kept the tomcat in the house because he caught mice, and the chicken because she laid eggs. The old woman noticed the duckling and asked her,
Who are you? You seem to be a duck. I'm so happy. Now I'll also have some duck eggs.
But a long time had passed, and the duckling hadn't laid any eggs. The tomcat and the chicken started to make fun of her.
Hey, can you lay eggs?
No, I can't.
Well, then I won't bother speaking to you, because I am the most important one here.
And the tomcat asked the duckling, Can you cuddle, purr? Can you catch mice?
No, unfortunately, I can't.
Then what are you good for, duck? And so, the duckling would spend her days in a corner, not wanting to do anything. All of a sudden, she remembered the fresh outside air and the sunlight. She started missing the water, and she had the urge to swim. She couldn't bear it any longer, so she told the chicken about it.
What's wrong with you? Find something to do, lay eggs or purr, and you'll see that you have a carefree life.
But it's so nice to float on the water.
What kind of activity is that? It's the first time I've heard of such a thing.
You don't understand me.
What's there to understand? Be happy that you're in a warm place and that you don't have to go outside in the storm. Learn to do what is asked of you. Lay some eggs or go catch mice, and you will have a great life. But the ugly duckling had already made up her mind.
Well, I think that I'll go into the big wide world.
Suit yourself.
And so the duckling left. Lucky for her, winter was short and spring soon started. There were flowers everywhere, and all of a sudden, the duckling saw that she could spread her wings wide and that her wings were much, much stronger than they were before. She flew off, and she soon reached a lake. There were apple trees in bloom and perfumed lilac bushes that were growing next to the lake. How beautiful everything was. 3 swans came out from the reeds, floating gently on the surface of the water. The ugly duckling saw them and said to herself,
I'll get close to those beautiful birds. But I think they will ignore me because I'm ugly. But I won't know unless I try. Maybe they'll be nice to me and accept me for who I am.
The ugly duckling gathered her courage and flew towards the swans. When they saw her, they started flapping their wings frantically, moving towards her as well. The duckling landed on the shore of the lake, thinking that the swans didn't like her.
You don't accept me either.
Said the poor duckling, lowering her head in sadness. But when she looked in the water, a surprise! She saw a reflection of herself, but now she was not ugly anymore. She had turned into a very beautiful white bird. She was a swan. The other swans landed next to her and welcomed her into their circle.
We haven't seen you around.
Let's be friends, please. What do you say?
Back when I was an ugly duckling, I couldn't have ever dreamed of such happiness before.
The ugly duckling turned into a beautiful swan and lived together with the other swans, feeling happy and complete because now she felt that she was finally home.